70 years of waiting. Generations of Newcastle fans experiencing heartbreak, near misses, and some dangerously low points. All of that was washed away on Sunday when Newcastle won the Carabao Cup. It wasn't just a fluky, smash and grab, nick a cheap goal and park the bus type win. No, far from it. We bossed Liverpool out of Wembley Stadium, and it was a tactical masterclass from Eddie Howe and his staff. But how did they do it? I noticed 3 core objectives that made up this game plan, and the lads executed it to perfection. Are you curious what they were? Stick around because I'm about to break them all down. It's the Newcastle United Digest. Let's go, everyone. Hello everybody and welcome out to the Newcastle United Digest, the channel delivering you tune content in bite-sized chunks. My name is Adam Snyder and this episode is going to be all about the crowd, the match, about everything behind me right here. And if you're wondering about my voice a little bit, it's because I'm still trying to get it back from Sunday. I went to the pub to watch this with Tune Army Chicago where they had their largest crowd ever. They had, according to the pub, 155 people at their peak. That is the largest crowd that Chicago has seen for a Newcastle United gathering. And yes, I believe that does include the Fan Fest in September. And I have a special story in case you didn't see that. This is a Rotor Estate. Yes, my green screen is messing with this a little bit, but yes, it is not actually champagne. It is a good sparkling white, and there's a very good reason for this. And it all ties into how I became a Newcastle fan. But before I do that, it's time to pop it open and pour myself a glass. Yes, I know what I'm pouring this into is not really a champagne flute. And quite frankly, I don't care. It's still bubbly. It's still delicious, and it's something that I can sip on and tell you the story. Cheers. Now, that bottle of sparkling white has a very significant impact on how I became a Newcastle supporter, so I'll tell that story very quickly so we can move on to the game. About 20 years ago, I started drinking, thank you to college. But I wasn't really a wine drinker, and my grandfather tried really, really hard, and it took the bubbly stuff for me to really appreciate it. Whenever we had Thanksgiving dinners with my extended family, because he was the big wine enthusiast, he volunteered to bring the wine because, well, he wanted to drink something good and not have to worry about what other people would bring. So every year he would bring this sparkling white, some other things that he thought people would enjoy. And they weren't the most expensive things because if somebody asked him what it was, he knew that they could go to a decent liquor store, get it for a cheap price, and they'd be able to remember him whenever they drink that wine. And 20 years to this day, I still drink this stuff, well, for celebrations, and this is a good reason to drink it. He's also the same person that got me to be a Newcastle supporter, start Team Number Chicago, and everything else. So I have to tell the story. In 1996, he went to England for the first time, and he had an afternoon in London, and him and my aunt went out looking at every single sporting goods shop they could find to try and get me an Alan Shearer Newcastle jersey. He knew that after Newcastle signed Shearer that I had the chance to be a part of something special. And I don't think he really knew how special it was, but he knew something was coming. So he brought me that shirt, and I've been a Newcastle fan ever since. I lost track. Didn't really lose track, but I lost a little bit of interest just because I couldn't follow games in college. But in 2012, 2013, started watching more games, and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, said, you need to find other people to watch games with because you're driving me crazy at all hours in the morning. I would like to sleep. So I did. And in 2014, almost 11 years to the day of this recording, I met up with people in Chicago for the first time. Met them at a popular football pub here in Chicago, and on the other side of the bar, I didn't know them. I found more people wearing black and white shirts, and I knew that was onto something. After the game, I said, let's go find everybody else. I know I haven't found everybody else, but I know I found a lot of them. And the reason I started Team Army Chicago was for community. And that's one of the reasons why I started this channel as well, is to bring people together who love Newcastle United, who would love to discuss the matches. And that's what I'm going to do with this episode right now. I went back and rewatched, and my initial instincts were right. I thought there were 3 pillars to Eddie Howe's game plan that the lads executed to absolute perfection. And the first pillar to that game plan was man-marking mania. There were many places over the pitch where it made sense to really tightly man-mark people, and this would prevent Liverpool from breaking forward and doing what they do best, and that's strike people with speed and being able to move the ball with ease and do it in a positive manner that, well, it's what they do. And the first part was getting the left back situation sorted. Going into this game, especially after the West Ham match, I was seriously worried about Tino Livramento and Harvey Barnes playing together on the left-hand side. The two looked really disjointed going forward, and Tino looked really uncomfortable with the ball going forward, making left-footed crosses, connecting with Harvey Barnes, and he looked kind of uncomfortable playing defense on the left-hand side. A birdie told me that Eddie Howe spent the entire week teaching Tino how to play against Mo Salah and how to do the job that Lewis Hall did a couple weeks prior. Whatever Eddie Howe and Tino did in training was exactly what Tino needed to neutralize Mo Salah, because let's face it, he's Liverpool's obvious threat. He is the Golden Boot leader right now in the Premier League. He's a big threat you need to neutralize, and Tino did just that. Salah was allowed just 23 touches in this game, and he was dispossessed on 6 of them. He was only able to get 2 crosses off, and one of them being remotely dangerous. Simply put, Tino Livramento stuffed the Egyptian superstar in his back pocket and stayed there and off our TV screens for the game. In fact, I'm pretty sure I saw Ant Dec and Alan Shearer on my TV more than I saw Mo Salah. And I really can only remember one instance where Salah had a chance to get away from Lieberman. Tino was caught upfield in attack, and Joe Linton sprinted back and made a perfect stand-up tackle. Not only did he get the steal, but he also drew a foul against Mo Salah to stop play and allow us to get the ball going forward the other way. And the other part of this man-marking strategy had to do with the midfield themselves. They wanted to stifle the runs and passes of their Liverpool counterparts. Even without Trent Alexander-Arnold, Newcastle's midfield had a very difficult assignment on their hands. They had to slow down Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Ryan Gravenberch from getting forward. With this balance of physicality, skill, and pace in our midfield, our lads in the middle of the pitch were the biggest reason why we won this game. I've said this many times this season, and I will say it again. If our midfield is playing well, the rest of the team feeds off of that and plays well. They set the standard for the match, and they set a very high bar for this game. They did a wonderful job of completing their man-marking assignments. They won second and third balls, dug in for tackles, and put their bodies on the line to make sure the Carabao Cup returned to the tune. They also eliminated passing lanes for Liverpool's midfield, neutralizing their ability to get the ball forward and especially get the ball to Salah. Even when Salah had the ball, there wasn't any support for him, and he had no targets to feed when he had the ball. Now you're probably wondering, yeah, that's a great pillar, but what's the next one and how does that play in? And that is perfect defensive shape. You're probably wondering, Adam, you talked about this not being a smash and grab park the bus type game. Why are you talking about defensive shape? I'll tell you why. Because even when you're not parking the bus, you still need your entire team to play defense. And when you have good defensive shape, you have a very tight, compact shape. When you're playing total team defense and you have good defensive shape, you're taking away passing lanes. You're forcing them to go around the outside and try and beat you or force an error someplace. At the same time, you're trying to force them into doing the same thing. And it was a game of cat and mouse, and our boys won this game every single time almost. And the midfield did a great job at contributing to this. One of the most frequent comments I heard about Newcastle's play when I was at the pub was about their good defensive shape. It was rare to see Liverpool have possession and find a way to break down Newcastle. This came down to good, disciplined team defense. Newcastle frequently had 8, 9, and sometimes 10 men behind the ball, and that was something Liverpool could not contend with. Just like the 2 legs against Arsenal, Eddie Howe's Mags did well to take away passing lanes on the ground, pick out any cross attempts in the air, and they patiently waited for their opportunities to pounce on any poor first touches, errant passes, or any potential second balls that they can win. Liverpool had nearly twice the possession in the game. They also completed just over twice the number of passes that Newcastle did. All of that possession and ball movement did them no good. The reason I say that is because, well, they only had 2 shots on goal and 7 total shots to show for it. What good is all the passing and moving everything around if you don't have any shots to show for it? Meanwhile, with half the possession, Newcastle's attack created 17 shots, 6 on goal, with just 228 passes completed. The difference between those two show you just how strong Newcastle's defensive shape was, preventing Liverpool from doing what they do best. Okay, so the first 2 had to do with neutralizing Liverpool and what they do on the offensive side of the ball. And how are we going to do that? The answer was neutralize Virgil van Dijk, and that's exactly what they did. Virgil van Dijk is one of the best central defenders in the Premier League, if not all of Europe. So neutralizing him as a defensive threat is a very tall order, but they did this in a couple of ways that worked very well. One of them had to do with set-piece adjustments. Van Dijk's physicality and aerial defense are 2 of his best attributes as a defender, so the best way to neutralize these traits was, well, keep the ball away from him. The most taught way to deliver a corner is to whip a curling ball in with the intention of finding someone that is lurking somewhere between the edge of the 6-yard box and the penalty spot. Any closer than that and it's easy pickings for the keeper. Unfortunately, this leads to a defensive header out of the box unless someone is broken free from their mark and gets a free header. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it's a header away. Eddie Howe knew that a good set-piece goal could make the difference in this game, so he went to work with the lads. Instead of lining up Big Dan Burn in the scrum with everybody else, they had him float around the edge of the penalty area. This allowed him to get more freedom to get his head on the ball, and this created some seriously dangerous chances. On a few occasions, he got a head on the ball and sent it back into pressure, looking for someone to get a touch on it and get a goal that way. It nearly worked on a couple of occasions. The one that did work was when he was lined up against Alexis McAllister. There's a foot height advantage between these two, and this allowed Burn to get a full run up to the ball and get full power in this header. He placed it perfectly, and it led to Newcastle's first goal at Wembley in 25 years when Rob Lee scored against Chelsea in the 2000 FA Cup semi-final. The other way that Newcastle kept Virgil van Dijk at bay was keep him confused a little bit. Just like Dan Burn's headers and corner kicks, Newcastle's forwards kept him guessing when they attacked in open play. On several occasions, Newcastle would get a switch in play, then get a cross-off, only to send the ball back across the penalty area again. They'd just send the ball back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Even for a top-tier central defender like Virgil van Dijk, it can cause drops in focus because you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know where the ball is going, and you don't know who to mark. This is exactly what they were looking for, and it paid off in the second half. After Isak's goal from a corner kick was disallowed, he scored again from this exact play. Barnes links up with Livramento, who gets a left-footed cross into Jacob Murphy. He wins an aerial duel against Andrew Robertson, and the ball falls to a waiting Alexander Isak. There was a momentary lapse in concentration from Van Dijk because of this back and forth, and this allowed Isak to quickly create a pocket of space to get the shot off that was eventually the game winner. And now, let's wrap things up with my ratings by position. And a goalkeeper, we have to start with Nick Pope, and I'm giving him a 10 out of 10 for this game. I was not sure that Nick Pope was exactly the goalkeeper that we needed for this game. I genuinely thought that Dubravka was the better choice, and I'm happily willing to admit that I was wrong. Pope was alert and in control of his box, and sometimes slightly beyond. He had several key punches on crosses and corners that were directed to deliberate areas out of pressure. And of course, we have to give him credit for that amazing save in the second half that kept the game at 2-0. And just like I talked about before, the defense is going to get a 10 out of 10 for this game. The defensive core were outstanding in this game. They had a size advantage over most of Liverpool's team, and they put it to good use for all 90 minutes. They did a great job of inviting pressure, not allowing any passes through dangerous channels, with the exception of the goal in injury time. Dan Burn put on a center-back masterclass, and he 100% deserved that Player of the Match award. For me, a close second for that award was Tino Livramento, just for the job that he did shutting down Mo Salah for the entire game. We've already spoken a lot about it in this episode, but his effort was immense against the most lethal forward in Europe right now. You're probably thinking the midfield's going to get a 10 out of 10 too, right? Not quite. They're getting a 9 out of 10 though. The midfield was a major part of slowing down Liverpool's ability to rush. They used their size and physicality to counter the scout speed the entire game. Yes, Trent Alexander-Arnold was a major miss for them, but I truly believe he would have had a tough day at the office against his midfield trio on Sunday. So you're probably wondering, why did the midfield not get a 10 out of 10 this game? It's the unnecessary spin move that Bruno made at the beginning of injury time that led to Liverpool's goal. And just like the midfield, the forwards are also going to get a 9 out of 10. They did use the press effectively, and it was another reason why Liverpool struggled to build from the back. Their pressure forced the backup goalkeeper Kelleher to play the ball long more often than not. They also did a great job at creating chances, luring Virgil van Dijk away from Alexander Isak for good chances. Murphy and Barnes also did a good job at taking their shots when they were available. It could have been a 3-0 or 4-0. Some shots were a little bit closer on target, but they did get the goal that mattered the most, the game winner. For me, set pieces were a 10 out of 10 for this game. The combination of Nick Pope and the defensive line did a great job of defending corners and free kicks that came our way. Pope's punches to safety and the size advantage we had over Liverpool were a great combination to keep the Premier League leaders at bay. On the defensive side of things, it was very clear they had a game plan. Keep everything away from one person who had a chance at clearing the ball, Virgil van Dijk. All corners were directed well away from him, and Big Dan Burn was positioned in a spot to inflict the maximum damage, lurking on the edge of the penalty area and away from the scrum in the 6-yard box. Burn was a menace in these situations, producing quality flicks into danger that nearly led to a couple of goals, And he got the one that mattered. And he got maximum power on a Trippier corner to score Newcastle's first goal at Wembley Stadium in 25 years. This might seem a little bit harsh, but I'm also going to give the subs a 9 out of 10 for this game. I think the subs that were brought on did the job they came on to do. Hold on to the lead and make sure the Carabao Cup was flying home to Newcastle Sunday night. Callum Wilson and Joe Willock, with some help from Sandro Tonali, did a wonderful job of wasting time in the corners. Emil Kraft did well to close off passing lanes down the stretch, and he did well to contribute to some counterattacks that led to holding the ball in the corner. The only thing I really didn't like was the timing of the subs. I thought Eddie could have brought Wilson on and or Willock on maybe 5 or 10 minutes earlier, giving Isak and Barnes some well-earned rest. It would have allowed Wilson and Willock to try for a third goal before switching over to game management mode. I thought the move to bring Murphy off and Kraft on at the start of injury time was a great move to secure the win. Yeah, there were some dings in this rating, but they still get a 9.5 out of 10 for this game. The tactical masterclass came together and it resulted in Newcastle bossing Liverpool all over the pitch and out of Wembley with runners-up medals. It's a well-deserved win for the lads, and let's hope that this is the first of many trophies over the next few years. And that will do it for this episode of the Newcastle United Digest. And if you like what you saw in this episode, be sure to give it a like. And if you're not yet a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so you get an alert whenever I release a new episode. Coming up over the international break, I will be giving you a little bit more insight into my day watching this match with Tin Army Chicago, as well as some footage from the game for myself and others that were there. I hope that you were able to enjoy this match with other Newcastle fans, whether it was a few of you in a living room or a basement, or you're able to make it to your local supporters group pub and enjoy it with some massive crowds that I saw all over the country and the world. So until next time, this is Adam Snyder saying, "Hoy the lads." Bye for now.